this morning, and pretty much talking to everyone, taxi drivers right through to Mrs. Merkel as well, they realise that this needs a far more coordinated effort because it's become a global problem, not just a Syrian problem.
OK, David, thanks very much for taking the time out to speak to us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, a competition watchdog in Australia has asked mobile phone giant Apple for an explanation after some consumers received an error message saying their handset would be disabled. The so-called Error 53 message popped up when some iPhone users tried to install an update on their phone. Well, the issue seems to have affected handsets where the home button has been repaired by a non-official company or individual. Let's speak to the technology journalist Alex Wood, editor of the digital website The Memo. Just explain a bit more. What's going on here? So
many people around the world woke up after maybe updating the software on their iPhones to find that those phones no longer work because of an error called Error 53. And as you mentioned, it seems to be related to people who have maybe changed the home button on their phones because, for example, it may break after time, there may be an error, and they've gone to an unauthorized repair shop, not an Apple store, and actually put a new button in there. Their phones have worked fine up until this point where they've updated the software and suddenly they've found that phone is no longer usable.
When you say update the home button, what do you mean?
So changing the home button for a new home button. So let's say you can no longer open the phone by just using your thumbprint. So you take it to another shop, not necessarily an Apple shop, and get someone to replace it, put some new hardware inside that device. And understandably, a lot of consumers are outraged and surprised, and the legal cases are now starting to crop up, not just in Australia, but also in the US and even the UK.
Apple's saying this is linked to security, is that right?
Yes and no. Now, it's important to mention that the way that we use our phones is changing all the time, and now we're starting to use them for payments, for online banking. It's very much with that thumbprint, that's such a crucial part of the device, and I think the argument that Apple's saying, they're not saying very much publicly, is that it's incredibly important that they can guarantee the security of that thumbprint sensor, and that could be a big problem, let's say, if someone was hacking into your online bank.
So what should people do if they find this message now, and how big a deal is it not only for them but for Apple going forward?
Well, I'd like to liken it to, if you were driving your car, you park it, the next morning you wake up, you get in your car, you can no longer drive it anymore. That's the reality of what's happened to some people. The error will come up on the screen, and that is it for the phone. Apple are saying that you should come into the store and discuss it with them, but
Are they going to give you a refund?
Well, there have been rumours swirling around the internet that essentially if they find that you have effectively invalidated your warranty by putting a third-party sensor inside it, that's it. The going rate within the UK is £236 just to replace that one part of the phone. But understandably, this is a bit of a PR nightmare for them.
Absolutely. Alex, thanks very much indeed. Do stay with us here on BBC World News. Much more to come. We'll have more on the scientific breakthrough which provides a